friends. The title that I have selected is a brief overview and challenges of environmental governance and solutions. So environmental governance is one of the very important administrative requirements in overall administration at national level to conserve and manage environment. The environmental governance in India is deeply rooted in our commitments to international agreements, cultural ethics and laws that we have framed as part of our responsibility to take care about the environment. The major changes we have started mainly after United Nations Conference on Human Environment of Stockholm 1972 and subsequent Earth Summits, namely United Nations Conference on Environment and Development at Rio de Janeiro in 1992 and World Summit on Sustainable Development, Johannesburg 2002. At present, we have full-fledged nodal agency, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, MOEFCC, to monitor and conserve the environment of our country. The broad objectives of ministry are to conserve the flora, fauna, forests and wildlife of our country, to prevent and control of pollution, to carry out afforestation activities, and overall to protect the environment and ensure the welfare of animals. MOFCC is the official administrative agency which is involved in the planning, promotion, coordination and overseeing the environmental policies. We also have a well-structured national environmental policy which was framed in 2004, renewed in 2006 and is a guideline document to all other environmental conservation practices and effective implementation of conservation aspects in our country. It also focuses on the inclusion of all advanced scientific and technological efforts to manage the environment of our country. Also, there are several laws, rules which are amended from time to time to protect the environment of our country. Sustainable development is based on three different approaches, and these are also called as three pillars of development. It is three-tiered approach, or it is also called as a triple bottom line approach. Namely, these are economic, social and environment. In the past, more emphasis was given to economic activities, but nowadays it has been well understood that without social upliftment and proper management of the environment, it is not possible to go ahead towards sustainable development. Various human activities, political dimensions and social aspects are considered on priority basis while managing the environment as part of governance. Compliance with environmental laws is very imperative as part of it. Environmental governance is very necessary to protect environmental resources of any society, and for the same it becomes very necessary to implement proper policy changes, restructuring of the laws and rules framed thereunder. More focus is also given to maintain a balance between environment and available natural resources with control and management of the activities in the best possible ways. So following are some major reasons behind degradation of the environment, which calls for ideal governance about solutions, even though we have well-structured mechanism. So major reasons behind environmental degradation are: the first one is increasing economic growth. Environmental areas of our country have already and are on the way of further degradation, mainly because of increasing developmental activities. We believe that future developments must go with standard prevention and control measures. It is best possible with strict policies and wise decisions by the involved agencies, organizations, and with the help of public participation. Essentially, only economic growth is not the overall development, as there are a lot of issues associated with it. Huge depletion of resources and many other social conflicts are associated with unplanned economic development. Many economists suggest that economic growth and environmental degradation are directly correlated. It is observed that more economic growth, more is the impact on environmental resources, which demands further extraction of the resources. Globalization is causing more industrialization without the true management of pollutants that are generated in various forms and a huge amount of wastes. There are hundreds of other reasons which cause a direct and indirect effect on environment. The next reason is population growth. Ever increasing population growth is root cause of all issues that we are facing since last few decades. It is one of the major hurdles in sustainable development. Almost all human societies are facing issues related to increasing population and availability of resources to meet the increasing demands. When such demand increases beyond the carrying capacity of the ecosystems, it causes further irreversible damage to the environment. Poverty, increased slums, unemployment, growing food demands further add to the acute environmental degradation. Thus, environmental components always remain under stress as more extraction of resources is carried out. Next reason for environmental degradation is pollution. There are thousands of reasons which are causing an increase in pollution of ecosystems throughout the world. Many urban areas have also been highly contaminated, causing effects on the living organisms. The ill effects are also seen on abiotic components of the environment. Even though we have technological solutions, the levels of pollutants are rising day by day. Fossil fuels, coal, and other anthropogenic activities emit carbon dioxide, oxides of nitrogen, sulfur, methane, and many other harmful gases, which ultimately increase the overall temperature of the earth. This is what we call as global warming. The industries and vehicles are mainly related to pollution of surrounding air everywhere. This is a very serious condition, that pollution of air, water, land, and other environmental resources is increasing at an unprecedented rate. Next reason for environmental degradation is change in agricultural practices. Huge changes have been occurred in agricultural practices as compared with the past decades, and there are a lot of drawbacks of the current advanced agricultural practices, which mainly depend on technological advancements. Overcropping, heavy use of chemical fertilizers, soil erosion, deforestation, desertification, water pollution are the major reasons which have complicated the current agricultural practices. Heavy use of agriculture also harms the soil quality, water holding capacity, and ultimately reduces the productivity of the lands. Saline soils, alkaline or sodic soils are the common features in many regions of the world in agricultural areas due to misuse of lands by over addition of fertilizers and mismanaged irrigation practices. Administrative challenges for conservation of environment. So to reduce the anthropogenic impacts on natural resources, there is much need to go for the solution of administrative issues, and the same experts and experienced people should work effectively with more transparency in good governance. There is also need for a reaction mechanism by citizens. I believe that many governmental, semi-governmental and non-governmental organizations have to play a very effective role in future to solve the challenges that are surrounded to us. This is also true that we have a very limited number of ideal experts, where lack of funds is another major issue. This is very challenging while working under such conditions for authorities, as they have to take very strict decisions. It is very important at first to avoid mismanagement of all the resources available to us. There is also an urgent need to prepare proper plans and implement them for faster recovery of environmental damages. Centralization of power is also a major hurdle to implement the standard practices to curb issues. Besides, there are limited agreements that have been carried out between central and state government agencies. Somewhere these are not specifically guiding and cause to have different meanings while implementation of the programs. There is need to have a deep understanding and cooperation between state and central agencies. A true collection of data, its analysis and honest efforts are required to manage the degrading environment of our country. To move towards standard ways of development, economic growth must go along with environmental protection. It should be considered as a base of development, and priority must be given in decision making. So corruption is one of the biggest hurdle in our country for the ideal implementation of environmental governance, where already institutes lack funds to implement the plans and projects properly. Also, this should never form a base to adjust and follow shortcuts in compliance and with environmental laws and other related regulations. A wiser approach with elimination of corruption is necessary by the countries to carry out practices in line with ideal ethics that are acceptable to all. Every citizen of this country must strongly oppose the bad practices that are followed nowadays in almost all societies. On paper, everything looks very ideal, but this is worrisome that actual implementation remains very poor. In this regard, we expect that governmental authorities should work in a highly transparent manner while dealing with private and non-governmental agencies. On a broader scale, government programs are not implemented uniquely and devotedly to solve the issues. The objectives of the sanction programs are not implemented with full capacity, so there are limited solutions while issues are amplifying to a larger extent to further cause imbalance among the agencies while taking decisions and implementing the plans. The plans are not implemented with full devotion towards a social cause. There is also a lack of political will at many levels of administration in many societies. Even these issues are mishandled to gain political favors and indicate the lack of futuristic views about development in our society. So trade developments, agricultural issues, health, peace and safety are all neglected to more or less extent, which can cause new issues or keep these issues in hanging position. The ignorance by society at large and irresponsible behavior by society members are the reasons which cause more and more disturbance to environment in our society. So solutions are to provide better solutions to the above mentioned problems and to protect the environment of our country. We have to plan and carefully balance everything in future. It requires strong political will and support by citizens in a time-bound frame. Very first, we have to protect all available resources in their present form at any cost, and implementation of effective environmental governance is a must-way with more strict rules. We have to carry out amendments in laws to remove out all outdated provisions and soft punishments which are there under various laws. We have to stop further degradation of the environment which is occurring because of untreated, inefficiently treated effluents and heavy emissions that are coming out from the industries. Technological solutions should be used at all possible ways to reduce raw material requirements, to develop products with minimum use of water, and at the end to produce fewer wastes. Technology can work in wonderful ways for the same, and every organization must go for investments in such practices to create an ideal consumer-oriented image. All current environmental issues and possible solutions should be well discussed by political parties, NGOs, governmental agencies, and other private organizations on priority basis. Awareness among the people and arrangement of workshops, conferences, exhibitions should be carried out extensively to understand the right paths of development. Besides, all limited natural resources must be protected with strong restrictions. More research should be carried out to use non-polluting and renewable resources with emphasis on wise use. Environmental resources and the parts of biodiversity are very much sensitive. We may lose them at a faster rate in future with increasing anthropogenic activities. Steps to conserve biodiversity must be taken with more scientific ways of management. This is also necessary to protect future raw material availability to industries and agriculture production. It is very necessary to give protection to animals and plants, especially those that are present in sensitive areas. Ecosystems, species, and genetic diversity must be given priority for conservation. Proper management, cooperation, increased use of scientific and technological knowledge can work better to solve issues of our society. There is an urgent need to stop conflicts between environmental issues and developmental aspects. Conservation and development of society must go together with standard practices having minimal impacts on nature. Environmental aspects must be given priority in the developmental plans with the involvement of public participation in decision making. The central and state governments must cooperate with perfect devotion and follow all the agreements to implement the rules properly. The sustainable and long-term developmental approaches must be accepted at all levels of society. Information technology, economic aspects, and transparency are the key areas that need to be given priority to control the current issues and stop further deviations in overall development. As part of conclusions, we suggest that the standard plans and programs, the involvement of experts, delegation of powers, decentralization, proper planning, transparency, and improved use of the full capacity of system is must to go for balanced economic, social, and environmental development. Ultimately, this will form a strong base for future success in achieving decided objectives under sustainability. Environmental governance, economic growth must be lined together at all levels. Conservation of biodiversity, reduction in pollution emissions, use of renewable resources, reuse, recycle waste, and other sustainable approaches can lead us towards ideal ways of future developments. Ultimately, we want a sustainable, clean, and safe environment for everyone in our country. Thank you very much.